What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the 503rd Legion. It's me, Kyle, today. And today I'm going to be kind of showcasing my Palpatine Vigilance deck profile that I've been working on for the past few months. For those of you that haven't seen the podcast, I have actually completely soloed Palpatine as my deck of choice ever since I got into StarWarsUnlimited. So I'm pretty familiar with the deck and the play styles, and I not only favor the color blue just based on like the removal as well as the other kind of strategy aspects of it, but I also think it's probably the best version of Palpatine, although I have not extensively tested double command. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and showcase my deck profile to you guys and kind of get some feedback on what you guys think of the deck, as well as some of my creative choices for developing the strategy and how I think it should work. So to start with, most villainy green decks, 3 Super Laser Technician, obvious ramp card. Usually you play it on turn 3, leave a mana open so you can damage something, use Palpatine's, pay your 1, use Palpatine's ability to damage something, kill this, ramp your resources as well as draw a card, which is exceptionally strong and one of the reasons that it attracted me to Palpatine in particular. One of the more recent additions that I've really come to love is 3 copies of Salacious Crumb. 3 copies on this seems a little weird, I know. It's not a particularly powerful card. It doesn't offer a lot of power to your plays, but in Palpatine specifically, this card enables a lot of different lines because of its immediate healing potential, which is important in control style decks, especially like Palpatine Vigilance. But if it survives the turn that you play, you can tap it and return it back to your hand to deal a damage to something that you can maybe then later take with Palpatine. So this card is like a huge synergy piece between just the Palpatine strategy in particular, as well as just residually keeping you alive. Healing 1 damage seems non-consequential, but you're playing 1, healing 1, and also putting a little bit of a threat on the board. So I think this card is actually really strong in Palpatine Blue in particular, as well as you don't really care if you're sacrificing your 1 cost for Palpatine to deal damage and draw a card. So in those decks like Heroic Blue-Red that are using Pillage and that kind of stuff that's targeting your hand, a lot of the time Salacious Crumb can just be a sacrifice outlet to draw another card. So you play it, heal 1, kill it, deal a damage, and draw a card for 2 mana. Or 2 resources rather, which is pretty strong. So Salacious Crumb has been a recent addition, and I really like it. The card that really has attracted me to playing Salacious Crumb is actually 3 copies of Pike Sentinel. And the reason that we do this is because you want to maximize your value off of Vader. So if playing 3 of these gives you the most chances to hit a 2 and a 1 drop off of Vader and play these cards for free. So when you play this, you get a 2/3 Sentinel and you heal 1, as well as a threat for next turn that can enable Palpatine to steal something. So maximizing your potential off Vader by hitting both of these, by playing as many copies as you can, is like, in my opinion, the strongest way to use Darth Vader commanding the First Legion right now. And I think that this synergy in particular is really strong in Palpatine Vigilance. So this also, like Sentinel and Control decks, is obviously super important. And so we're on 4 copies of Sentinel ground units. So we play 1 Phase 3 Dark Trooper. I no longer play 2 or 3 of this card. And my reasoning is that this card's ability to gain experience counters never comes up. They're usually using open fire or blue removal to get rid of this card. So at most it eats a removal spell, but its ability never procs. So it's basically no different than Pike Sentinel, but it costs 1 more mana. And a lot of the time it's just getting removed anyway outside of combat, or they don't mind trading for it, and it's never going to proc the ability to put more damage on the board. I do like having a critical mass of cards with Sentinel, as well as this being another target to hit off of Vader in those clutch situations when you need a Sentinel unit is very important. So I'm still on 1 copy, but just in my testing, this card at multiple has actually hurt more than helped because it interferes with the mana curve on 3. Turn 3 and turn 4 in Palpatine in particular are like really important turns because you either want to be stagnating damage against aggro decks or you want to be ramping. And so because this card gets in the way of those 2 pieces of the strategy, I don't want to play more than 1. But I do think it's important to have more than just the 3 Pike Sentinel as units with Sentinel in the deck. Obviously, the reason I play green-black or green villainy is Darth Vader commanding the First Legion. This card is not only gorgeous, but it's probably the single-handed best card in the deck. I already explained the synergies between Salacious Crumb and Pike Sentinel and maximizing your utility off of Vader, but also having Ambush as basically a removal spell and kitting a 5/7 on the board to offer damage is like exceptionally important. So this card offering you card advantage, or card value rather, as well as removing something, just makes this card exceptionally strong. There's not really a replacement for it. This card is just amazing. And these convention exclusives that I've purchased are just incredible looking. So this card not only got me into the game in the first place, but I also think it's probably the strongest green villainy card right now. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have to drag more on about Vader because I've already explained the synergies with him, but he's an exceptionally strong card. And a lot of my deck is built around this card specifically because of its power that it offers. Next, one of my other favorite cards, Reinforcement Walker. I'll just spoil right now that later in the list, I play 3 copies of Timely Intervention. That comes up in grind games, but against aggro, you usually want to take out some Timelies and some Reinforcement Walkers because you're never getting to turn 8 or turn 10 if you're using Timely. Or Resource 8 and Resource 10, because you don't actually have to be on those turns to have that many resources, but you get what I mean. But this card combined with Timely Intervention is either like discard 2 from the top of your deck, heal 6, and remove something with Ambush, or it becomes draw 1, heal 3, remove something with Ambush, or it becomes draw 2, remove something with Ambush. So this card with Timely Intervention in particular is exceptionally strong. This is especially good in control matchups or against like Boba Yellow, provided they don't open Insane or you can't stagnate damage and they just kill you. But this card against Boba Yellow and decks that basically are not Sabine is exceptionally good. But against like Sabine and other like Boba variants that are exceptionally aggressive, you kind of want to side at least a few of these out, because a lot of the time if you keep these in and you're bricking on this card, it's not a removal spell essentially, you'll just die before you can play it. So this card has a lot of like powerful interactions, but just not against aggro matchups. 2 copies of Snoke, probably one of the best villainy blue cards in the game. Floodgate -2/-2 as a 6/6 for 8 is exceptionally strong. It gets around stuff like Lurking TIE Phantom, which is exceptionally strong, like Tarkin Yellow. And so yeah, I don't really have to explain Snoke all that much. This card is just very powerful. If you played against it, you know how good it is. And then for the last ground units we have 1 copy of Count Dooku. I actually really love this card. It's basically like takedown on legs for 7, but you also get a shielded 5/4 unit, and if you Timely Intervention, you only lose a shield, you remove 2 things. And I think this card is very strong. So I like playing 1 copy of it. I don't like playing multiple because it is situational. If it's too late in the game to play this card, then it actually doesn't have that much of an impact unless there's something with 4 or less HP, which in late games doesn't really happen. But I think that this card is good. So I'm still on 1 copy of it, as well as 1 copy of Maul, Shadow Collective Visionary. Ambush Overwhelm is exceptionally strong. We do have some Underworld units in here with the Pike Sentinels, but that effect doesn't really come up all that much. But having another Ambush Overwhelm, so getting a body and a removal spell essentially, is very strong. So we still like them all, and we like the Dooku. So we're on 1 and 1 of each. Okay, now for space units, we're on 3 copies of Inferno 4, or Scry Fighter, as I and a few of my friends like to call it. If you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, you know what Scry means. This card is just exceptional with its defeat trigger from Palpatine. So you ping something that you can maybe take later with Palpatine, and then you smooth out your draws, which can be important when you're trying to ramp, as well as when you're looking for like removal or you're looking for Vader. So yeah, this card smoothing out your draws, as well as just being a 2/3 body for 2 in the space, can be very good. A lot of this times I just end up swinging this card into small space units because I don't want them dealing damage to me over time, and I don't care if this dies. Like, I'm not using this as like, I'm not trying to put a bunch of damage by playing this card, you know? So it's just like, if I can use this to kill something, I will. as well as because it has a defeat trigger. So it's not really like I'm losing all that much. I mean, yes, I'm losing a unit, but I'm smoothing out my next 2 draws and I'm hopefully removing something. So yeah, very strong card. Smoothing out the draws and getting to ramp is important. 2 copies of Avenger. This card just single-handedly wins games. Removal every turn, as well as when played, is exceptionally strong. With some other cards in my deck, you can give this a shield token, which makes it almost impossible to remove as long as you play around cards like Power of the Dark Side. If they're on Vanquish or Fell the Dragon, that can be a problem, but if they have those cards, they have those cards, and they're usually using those cards to remove something that you can either bring back or play another unit that's just as strong. Playing 3 is too many, you'll brick on it, as well as 2 copies of Devastator. This card's exceptionally strong. It removes something when played, and it has Sentinel Overwhelm, so if you Timely Intervention any of these cards, they become just absolute powerhouses. Sentinel in space, for this deck in particular, is very strong because we don't have a lot of Sentinel space units, or rather we don't have any except for Devastator, so good card. I usually side one out against aggro matchups because they usually kill you before you get to 10. Okay, that's it for the units. Now we are on to the events and upgrades. So, no surprise, 3 copies of Palpatine's Return. Probably my favorite card in the deck because I don't care if I get like Spark of Rebellion for my best card or I pillage my best card because I can just bring it back later. You can play Snoke out of the grave for 6. You can bring back your Vader for 6. You can bring back your Dooku and remove another thing for 6. You can ambush Overwhelm with Maul for 6 because it discounts Force units. So Palpatine's Return, again, one of the reasons I play Green Villainy, because cards like this are just exceptional, and I've always been kind of like attracted to reanimation strategies. So Palpatine's Return, probably my favorite card in the deck, aside from like Vader, obviously. This is basically just another few copies of like the best card in your deck, as well as discounting it by 1 mana can sometimes come up because then you can play a removal spell coupled with this. And also this card in particular gives a lot of utility because you can resource like one of your copies of Devastator, and then if they discard the other one or it dies, you can bring it back later. You can do that with your Force units, you can do that with Snoke and just give another -2/-2 to the field, and it's just, yeah, Palpatine's Return gives you more utility with what you resource as well. So Palpatine's Return, exceptionally strong, one of my favorite cards in the deck. 3 copies of Resupply. Don't need to explain this. This is just more ramp. We're playing green, so that's what we're doing. 3 copies of Timely Intervention. I've kind of explained why we play this card. I think this card is exceptionally strong in green. Very good. And the last green event is 1 copy of Overwhelming Barrage. Because we're in Palpatine in particular, I only play 1 of this. I usually wait until I have a big unit on the field that I'm not going to kill with Palpatine or just run into something before I can use it. And then I can also spread that damage around to remove shields, to kill Sentinel units, to target stuff in space if I'm getting beat down with like Tarkin Yellow. As well as just board clear, one-sided board clear against decks like Sabine or Han that are just playing low to the ground, low cost units with little health. So Overwhelming Barrage, very strong, but in my experience, in Palpatine in particular, if I play too many copies of this card, it either gets resourced or I have it in my hand, it's dead because I don't have any units at the time. So you have to be careful with how you play this card or how many you play of this card. I've considered bumping it back up to 2, but I would never play 3 of it, at least not in this list, the control strategy that I'm going for. But right now I've been happy with 1 copy. When it comes up, it's big. When it doesn't come up, it's nice to hold it for later turns, or I can resource it if I think it's bad in the matchup. So Overwhelming Barrage, obviously very strong card in a vacuum. But in this list in particular, I'm already on blue, so I'm already playing removal. And I don't need to like put more chances to brick, especially on like turn 5. So I think this card is very good, obviously, but I don't want to play too many of it. 3 copies of Vigilance. Obviously this costs 6 because it's double blue and that's out of aspect. A lot of the time you're defeating something with 3 less health, giving a shield token, and almost always healing 5 from your base. The milling 6 comes up against other control strategies, like against Bosk Blue it came up. But other than that, you're usually using it to defeat a smaller unit and heal 5. So having this like mass healing and removal in 1 card is very good. Even paying the aspect cost, or the aspect penalty of 6 rather. So we like Vigilance for sure. 3 copies of one of the best cards in the game, Power of the Dark Side. Not only do I love the art in Hyperspace Foil, but this card is just absolutely crazy in controlling board states. This is why like turn 3s and 4s are so important, and you don't want to play too many phase 3 Dark Trooper, because Power of the Dark Side is just so good. So usually you either want to be playing this or you want to be ramping. 2 copies of Vanquish, mainly for control matchups or for grind games against aggro decks that I can actually like not die against in a few turns. So Vanquish comes up and removing those bigger units, those problem units, as well as like decks like Kira or Luke that are just always trying to spam shields on stuff. You can just get around that by killing. I like having targeted removal in addition to Power of the Dark Side, because on those go wide decks, Power of the Dark Side becomes much worse because they're just playing a bunch of low cost stuff that you don't care if you kill. In addition to single target removal, I have 1 Rival's Fall. Taking out important leaders or expensive leaders comes up a lot. So in the Palpatine mirror match, this is insane. Against Hondo, this has come up. Against Vader and Luke, this has come up. Defeating a leader for 1 more cost over a Vanquish almost makes me want to play 2 of this, but a lot of the time Vanquish is just better overall, because you only really want to use this on a leader most of the time, so why pay extra when you can pay less for the other 2, you know? We also can remove leaders with the next 2 cards, 2 copies of Super Laser Blast. One of the reasons to play Blue Villainy, this card is just absolutely absurd. Defeating all units, ignoring shields, ignoring damage, ignoring all of that is very good. Especially against aggro decks, against Han in particular. This card has won me a couple of games, as well as if you get yourself in a losing position because you've been killing your own stuff to draw cards against control decks, this card can be very good. So you can clear your own stuff, draw some cards, deal some damage, and then wipe their whole board. Like, this card has won me games against Boba Yellow for sure, because sometimes you just need to board clear in order to stay in it. Last 3 copies of Entrenched. Because we're defeating our own stuff and dealing damage, as long as they're not damaging our base, we're in a winning position. So entrenching their leader, entrenching their big units, entrenching whatever, and just not letting it attack the base is very good. A lot of the times this comes up against space centralized decks, because we have Sentinel units for the ground centralized decks. So you can just slap this on space, slap this on problematic leaders. Entrenched in testing and in playing this deck for a few months, this card has become very, very good. I highly underestimated this card when I first started playing. So Entrenched is one of my favorite cards in the list right now. Okay, and that does it for the main deck. Right now we're at 51 cards. I'm trying to trim it to 50, but I don't want to go a little too crazy and like removing or cutting cards until I've thoroughly tested them. So right now we're happy with 51. It's performing well. Okay, side deck is a work in progress, but we've got 2 copies of Relentless. This is insane in control matchups, as well as 3 copies of Del Mico. This not only heals you, but it makes events more expensive, so it's good in control, it's good in aggro, because it makes stuff like Open Fire and Pillage, stuff that they want to be playing on turn 3 and 4, 1 more expensive. So very good, as well as healing you on attack. So very strong. Fell the Dragon for Crate Dragon in particular. So we have the 2 Vanquishes, the 1 Rival's Fall, the Super Laser Blast if we need them, which we don't really want to play against Crate Dragon, but if we have to, we have to. And then we have 2 copies of Fell the Dragon for Crate Dragon, because Crate Dragon itself is just so very good. This also comes up against stuff like Avenger and Devastator in the control mirror matches. And lastly, 3 copies of Make an Opening. This card is very, very good against Tarkin Yellow in particular, or Boba Yellow when they're trying to spam Lurking TIE Phantoms. Or the, I forget what it's called, but the 2/2 for 2 that comes in shielded in Boba. So yeah, as well as Incidental Healing is pretty strong. It does get in the way because it's a 3 cost, so we're kind of clogging that 3 resource slot with like Phase 3 Dark Trooper and Power of the Dark Side, Resupply, Super Laser Technician. So we're kind of clogging that slot when we side these in. But this card is just so important, especially for Lurking TIE Phantom in particular. This card's become really strong. But yeah, so right now, this is the list. We've been rocking out. We've been doing pretty okay at locals as well as in testing. So I'm pretty happy with it. We do have a planetary qualifier coming up, so I might make some tweaks to the deck before that, as well after I do some more testing. But right now, this is what we're rocking, and I'm really happy with how the list has been performing. So let me know your guys' thoughts, your opinions on the deck. What you guys think of, like, what bad matchups I need to adjust more for, or what cards you think are a little bit overrated. Like, I always go back and forth on making opening in particular. So yeah, just looking for some feedback and hoping you guys enjoyed the deck profile, if this gives you ideas for how to play Palpatine. So thanks so much. Please like and subscribe. I know that we are just in the infancy of this channel, so it would really mean a lot if you guys liked and subscribed to the channel, if you enjoyed the deck profile. And thank you so much. See you guys in the next one. May the Force be with you.